Deathstroke number 8, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Eduardo Pansica. We left off last issue with what could basically be called the end of the arc. It was Deathstroke facing down against his son Grant, and Grant basically having the killing blow on Slade, but refuses to do it and walks off with Slade just bleeding to death. This issue picks up with a then and now story. So then, many, many years ago, it is a dude mugging some guys for his wallet, or for their wallets. He runs back to his car, hops in, and his kid is in there, and he's like, Dad, did you do it? What's going on? And as the dad is driving the getaway car, he crashes into a much nicer looking car, and he sees that it is a mobster, a gangster, something like that. And all the narration basically just saying how Slade is the kid. It's him and his dad. His dad was just like a petty thief who liked to think of himself as some big-time con man, but in reality, he was just nothing. He was absolutely nothing. He was a weak, spineless man. And this mobster that he crashed his car into was apparently someone that he owed money for. So he hands over the wallet he just stole and says, like, there, I swear I'll have the rest of the money next time. And he's like, all right, cool, you got a week. And as soon as he gets back to the car, Slade is like, Dad, are you okay? And Slade's dad just backhands him. And his dad's name is Nathaniel. I don't know if I'll say that, but if I do, Nathaniel. Slade's dad just backhands him. He's just like, I told you to stay in the car, kid. Which Slade doesn't take too well. Cut to now. Slade's in the hospital. He wakes up, and there's a nurse named Hemingway who's taking care of him. And she tells him, hey, you're in Indiana. You've been unconscious for 2 days. Alex pulled you out of that house. And he asks where Grant is and says nowhere. Like, we can't find him. And Hemingway says, well, I was only paid to stick around until you showed up. Like, I'll leave now unless you want me to stay. And he's like, no, you can go. And she's like, all right, well, I'm going to leave you alone again. So see you next time, unless, of course, you don't make it. So then we cut back to then. They're at, like, the Grand Canyon, Slade and his dad. And he's just like, Dad, how does water do all that to rocks? And he's like, well, son, it happens over a very long period of time, but even the toughest things can break after long enough. And he's like, I don't understand what you mean, Dad. And he's like, of course you don't understand what I mean. Meanwhile, the mobster's car comes up, and Slade's like, Dad, it's them. What are we going to do? And he's like, get out of the car, Slade. And he's like, but why would I get out of the car, Slade? And as he gets out of the car, his dad's like, I owe you $10,000, right? And the mobster's like, yep. And then he just pushes Slade over to the mobster. She's like, here, he's yours. We're even. So he just sold his own son. And the mobster's like, all right, pleasure doing business with you. And they drive away. Cut to now. Slade is being approached by someone for a job. It's a really, really small job. A guy named Killswitch. He works with explosives. And Slade's like, all right, I'll do it. And he's like, are you serious? Deathstroke's going to take on such a small job? And he's like, do you want me not to do it? And he's like, no, I just thought you'd want something bigger. He's like, I don't know, feeling generous. So he goes and he finds this Killswitch guy who's just living in like a ratty apartment. And he walks in and starts trying to fight. And Killswitch is just freaking out because Deathstroke's in his apartment. He fires awesome shots, and Deathstroke's like, good, all right, make it an actual fight. And they make their way into the bathroom with Killswitch just screaming the whole time. But he does get his hands on a detonator, and he's like, all right, stay back or I send both of us up. And Deathstroke just pulls up his mask, and he's like, do it. Push the button. Come on. Grow a backbone and do it. And so Deathstroke just walks over slowly and pushes the button himself, and the entire apartment just explodes. And out of the rubble, Deathstroke comes out pretty much unscathed. He sees the burned, charred, destroyed body of Killswitch, and he's like, pathetic. Meanwhile, at that moment, Killswitch's son shows up. He's like, Dad, did you kill my dad? And Deathstroke just tosses him a knife and says, like, hey, when you're older, if you want to come kill me, here you go. And the kid's like, he deserved to die, didn't he? And he's like, yeah, most of them do. Anyway, bye. So then we cut to sometime later. He's talking to Peabody. Peabody's like, oh, okay, so you took another job. I thought you would be out with your injuries. And he's like, I'm never out with my injuries. But apparently he was doing some thinking on how him and Grant are the same, because they basically just keep on wanting to try to one up their fathers. They keep wanting to be better than their fathers. But the difference between Grant and Slade is that Grant could get out, but Slade is doing it because it makes him happy. So he goes, and apparently in Gary, Indiana, his father is still alive, and he goes and visits him on a respirator in his home. And he's like, hey, Dad, I considered quitting my job recently, but then I thought, nah, I'm going to keep doing it just so I can prove how much better I am for you. You sold me for $10,000, and I don't even get out of bed for that anymore. You are absolutely pathetic, and I am always going to be better than you. And he pins up newspapers on the wall opposite of his dad, showing all the things that Slade's done. And he's like, all right, until next time. And his dad just looks pissed, and that's just where it ends. Slade is such an asshole, but it's so much fun. No, honestly, I don't really have much to complain about in this issue. I genuinely enjoyed it the whole way through. I think it was good little, not like over-expositing Slade's past. It's just this tiny little piece of who he is, but it's a very critical piece. It is a very, defining moment of, oh, he was sold by his own father. That tells you a lot about what you need to know. So, no, it was good. It was good throughout. It didn't really forward much of anything. It just feels like a capper on the arc, or just like a little breathing space between arcs. But it was solid the whole way through. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one I'm going to say 8. I'm almost at an 8.5, but that just feels a bit too high for what is essentially just a breather issue in between of arcs. So yeah, 8 for this, and I am definitely looking forward to what insane craziness we can continue on with in future arcs of this book.